The favourite stars Queen Anne, a mess of a monarch with 17 rabbits, one for each child she lost, and enough health problems to fill a medical textbook. Sarah Churchill, the Queen's right-hand woman, actual political mastermind, and longtime special friend. Abigail Hill, Sarah's fallen from grace cousin who shows up covered in mud and ready to climb that social ladder by any means necessary. What if one risky kiss hid the key to a love so intense it could tear an empire apart? Well, let's find that out. So our story starts in England, way back when, and this absolute mess of a palace where Queen Anne is supposedly running the show. And I mean, she's trying her best, but let's be real, our girl is not exactly thriving. Queen Anne's got all these health issues that keep her down. She's kinda weird, pretty unpredictable, and basically needs a full-time babysitter. Enter Sarah Churchill, not just any lady-in-waiting, but the lady in Anne's life, if you catch my drift. These two? They're tight. Like, super tight. Sarah's always there, rubbing Anne's legs when they hurt, whispering in her ear about what to say to all those stuffy politicians. After Anne gives this big royal speech thing, which, shocker, Sarah probably wrote, the palace is buzzing with gossip and eye rolls. The palace vibe is ridiculous, BTW. 1 minute they're debating war tactics, and the next they're laughing about someone's wig falling off. Classic 18th century problems, am I right? Then some bigwig mentions gifting a whole-ass palace to Sarah, because apparently that's what you do when you're crushing it as the Queen's companion, but not everyone's thrilled about this extravagant present, especially with England still at war with France. Speaking of the war, everyone's acting like they just won everything when they totally haven't. The Tories and Whigs, political parties, not dance moves, are fighting about whether to push for peace or keep the battle going. Sarah's caught in the middle of this mess while still having to manage Anne's constant neediness. Then this new girl shows up, Abigail. She's Sarah's cousin who's fallen on hard times. And by hard times, I mean her dad literally gambled her away in a card game. Yikes. When Abigail rolls into the palace, she's covered in mud and looking rough. But don't sleep on her. This woman's playing chess while everyone else is playing checkers. She's smart, observant, and about to shake things up. Poor Queen Anne gets hit with a gout attack, and it's straight up agony. While everyone's scrambling around with different remedies, Abigail spots an opportunity. She sneaks off to pick some herbs that might help, taking initiative where others wouldn't dare. Between all the war talk and political scheming, there are these sweet flashbacks of when Sarah and Anne were young. They were awkward and cute together, and you can tell there's history there, the kind that goes way beyond friendship. The whole palace is like this weird theatre where everyone's performing their part. Some are in it for power, some for survival, and a few might actually care about each other. But trust me, nothing is simple when the throne is involved. So while all these personal dramas are unfolding, there's this whole war thing happening that's kind of a big deal. The smart cookies at court were like, hey, maybe we should talk to the French instead of just killing each other. Radical concept, right? But saving lives and money seemed pretty logical to some people. Of course, nothing's ever simple in politics. The war hawks were clutching their pearls at the mere suggestion of peace talks. You'd think they were discussing cancelling Christmas instead of ending a bloody war. Meanwhile, the palace is this weird mix of deadly serious war meetings and people cracking jokes about each other's outfits. Just another Tuesday in the 18th century England. The Prime Minister and this dude Harley were constantly huddled in corners, plotting like they were planning a surprise party instead of military strategy. Just one more battle win and we'll look super tough, was basically their motto. Others rolled their eyes and were like, or we could just stop fighting. Revolutionary. And can we talk about the taxes? Everyone was obsessing over every penny spent. Do we really need that many cannons? Could we maybe use cheaper gunpowder? Politics hasn't changed much in 300 years, has it? But beneath all this war talk, there was this whole other layer of palace life that was way more interesting. Sarah wasn't just managing the Queen's calendar, she was managing her heart. When everyone else was yelling about battle strategies, Sarah was the one making sure Anne felt safe and cared for. That's relationship goals, honestly. These two had something special going on. While ministers droned on about treaties, Sarah and Anne were stealing these little moments together that were straight up adorable. A lingering touch here, a private laugh there. They'd exchanged these looks across the room that said everything without saying anything. And yes, there were kisses. Not those formal royal pecks, but real meaningful kisses that made everything else fade away for a minute. The way Sarah could calm Anne down with just a hand on her shoulder was honestly beautiful. In a world where everyone wanted something from the Queen, Sarah seemed to just want Anne to be happy. When they were alone, they could drop the whole Queen and subject act and just be two people who genuinely cared about each other. But don't sleep on Abigail. Girl was watching everything like a hawk. She wasn't just some random servant. She came from money before her dad gambled it all away. She knew how to move in these circles, even if she was currently scrubbing floors. Abigail had this way of making everyone underestimate her while she was playing the long game. She'd crack these perfectly timed jokes that made even the stuffiest lords laugh, all while filing away every bit of gossip and weakness she observed. And despite everything life had thrown at her, she still had this quiet dignity that was impossible to miss. The war debates kept getting more intense. Some minister would dramatically slam his fist on the table, shouting about the honour of England, while another would mock him for being dramatic. They'd literally go from threatening to ruin each other politically to sharing a drink 5 minutes later. It was like watching the world's most dysfunctional family reunion. And through it all, these little moments of connection kept happening. Not just between Anne and Sarah, but between all sorts of people at court. A handmaid exchanging meaningful glances with a palace guard. Two lords holding hands when they thought no one was looking. In this weird, high-pressure world where everyone was supposed to be obsessed with power, people were still finding ways to be human with each other. The palace was basically this bizarre pressure cooker of politics, ambition, war, and unexpected tenderness. 1 minute, they're calculating how many soldiers they can afford to lose, and the next, they're comforting each other through personal tragedies. For all the fancy clothes and formal titles, these were just people trying to figure out how to survive, both the war abroad and the battles in their own hearts. As night fell on the palace, plans were being made for both peace negotiations and lavish celebrations, because why not do both? In this strange world where life could end at any moment from disease or war, even the smallest gentle touch between lovers felt like a victory against chaos. A kiss shared in a hidden alcove might seem small compared to international treaties, but to the people involved, these moments of connection were what made everything else worth fighting for. Things really start heating up in Queen Anne's court. Abigail, who's basically playing 18th century chess with people as pieces, starts making her big moves. Abigail's got this whole sweet and innocent act down pat. She brings some special treats she made for Queen Anne, watching super carefully to see how the Queen reacts. Anne absolutely loves it, of course. The Queen's a total mess emotionally, though. 1 minute she's all sunshine and rainbows with Abigail, the next she's cooing at her pet rabbit named Sussy like it's her actual child. Girl's got issues, but who doesn't when you're running a whole country? In walks Masham looking all fancy in his best duds. You should see the way Abigail messes with him. She straight up asks if he's planning to seduce her or force himself on her. Talk about cutting to the chase. Poor guy doesn't know whether to be scandalized or turned on. Their whole vibe is this weird flirty power struggle where Abigail's clearly calling the shots and Masham's just along for the ride. Meanwhile, Sarah, who used to be the Queen's favourite, is getting seriously ticked off. She can totally see what's happening between Abigail and Anne and tries to step in. But Anne just brushes her off like yesterday's news. Sarah's blood is practically boiling at this point. Then comes this super intense moment where Abigail opens up about her tragic backstory. She spills all the trauma she's been through, and Anne gets all soft and maternal about it. The Queen reassures her that she matters, which is kinda sweet but also kinda weird given the power dynamic. It's this strange mix of playful and tense that keeps you on edge. Out of nowhere, Anne completely loses it over some music playing, like full-on meltdown mode. Everyone's standing there shocked while Abigail swoops in to comfort her. Smooth move. Now she looks like the only one who can handle the Queen's outbursts. The rivalry between Sarah and Abigail gets cranked up to 11 during this shooting competition they have. Sarah's watching Abigail get better with a gun and basically says, "Don't get too big for your britches, girl," but Abigail's like, "Whatever, I'm winning this game." Harley, this political schemer, keeps pressing Abigail for dirt on the Queen's tax decisions. She plays it smart, gives him just enough to keep him interested without giving away the store. Meanwhile, Masham is still puppy-dogging after Abigail. She toys with him about marriage before shutting him down completely. Classic power move. Things really hit the fan when Sarah messes up and the Queen gets publicly embarrassed. Anne freaks out, feeling betrayed and humiliated. And wouldn't you know it, she finds Abigail in her bed. Abigail claims she's just super tired, but come on, we all know what she's doing. She's making her final move to replace Sarah. The whole thing comes to a head when Sarah accuses Abigail of stealing, trying to get her kicked out. But plot twist! The Queen is so wrapped around Abigail's finger by now that instead of firing her, she promotes her to maid of the bedchamber. That's basically a giant middle finger to Sarah right in front of the entire court. Sarah's standing there shocked, finally realizing just how cunning Abigail really is. What started as this behind-the-scenes catfight has turned into a full-blown war for control over the most powerful woman in England. And right now, Team Abigail is definitely winning. Now this is the point where the power games reach a whole new level of messy. Queen Anne and Abigail are having this weirdly intimate moment where Anne's all complimenting Abigail's hair. Abigail plays it cool, acting like it's no big deal, but she knows exactly what she's doing. The Queen is basically a needy puppy looking for affection, and Abigail's serving it up with a side of manipulation. While Abigail's cozying up to the Queen, Sarah's still running the political show. She's pushing Anne to give this speech about raising taxes because that's what Sarah does, handles the tough stuff. But Anne's totally distracted, rambling about seeing some one-eyed dude on the road. Like what? She's clearly losing it a little bit. Anne asks this super revealing question. Are the people mad at her? Sarah shuts that down real quick with this ice-cold line about how people are led, they don't lead. Classic Sarah thinking she knows best. But you can see Anne getting annoyed with being bossed around all the time. The cracks in their relationship are starting to show. Abigail's meanwhile playing the court like a fiddle. She's manipulating this politician Harley to get private time with the Queen. When he calls her out on her schemes, she basically threatens to turn the Queen against him. Girl went from scared little servant to stone-cold player real quick. Things get juicy when Harley starts planting seeds in Anne's head. He tells her people hate the war, there are riots happening in Leeds, and, surprise, Sarah's been keeping all this from her. You can literally see Anne's face when she realizes how much Sarah's been controlling what information gets to her. Talk about a wake-up call. Then Harley mentions Abigail may be marrying this Colonel Masham, and Anne gets all weird about it. She's like, a maid marrying a nobleman? As if. But you can totally tell she's jealous. Abigail picks up on this vibe immediately and does this whole submissive act to make Anne feel better. The manipulation is next level. In a total power move, Abigail slips some poison into Sarah's tea during a meeting. Boom! Then Sarah just disappears. Anne completely loses it when Sarah goes missing. First, she's all, whatever, she's just trying to make me feel bad. But as days go by, she starts freaking out. Is Sarah okay? Did she leave on purpose? The Queen's emotions are all over the place. She's angry one minute, crying the next. While Sarah's out there somewhere fighting to survive in the wilderness, Abigail's making her big play. She tricks Anne into approving her marriage to Masham by pretending she's not sure about it. It's genius. Anne thinks it's her idea. Next thing you know, Abigail's married and officially a noblewoman. Talk about a glow-up from scrubbing floors. But don't count Sarah out yet. She wakes up looking beat up in some sketchy place, probably a brothel. When she demands a carriage, they basically laugh in her face. May says no. Brutal. Sarah's gone from giving orders to being completely powerless. But even then, she's not begging. She offers gold coins instead. That's Sarah, always finding a way. Just when you think it's over, Sarah makes it back to the palace on horses the Queen sent for her, and you better believe she's ready for a showdown with Abigail. The battle for the Queen's favour is far from over. It's just getting started. This is where you really see how these power games end up crushing everyone involved. So Sarah Churchill, being the absolute badass she is, makes this last desperate play to get back in Queen Anne's good graces. She's literally begging Anne to wake up and see what's happening. Abigail is playing you. She's practically screaming. Sarah's laying it all out. Get rid of Abigail. Replace Parliament members with royal loyalists. Raise those taxes. She's not just fighting for her position anymore. She genuinely thinks Anne's going to wreck everything without her guidance. But Anne's completely done with Sarah at this point. She's got this cold, tired look that says everything without saying anything. Their relationship is so broken that Anne can't even hear the truth anymore, even when it's staring her right in the face. Instead of listening to Sarah, Anne basically does the complete opposite of everything she suggests. Make peace with France? Check. Fire Sarah's husband from being Prime Minister? Double check. Replace him with that sneaky Harley dude who's been waiting in the wings? You bet. And then comes the final knife twist. She straight up banishes Sarah from court. Just like that, Sarah goes from being the Queen's BFF to persona non grata. But Sarah's not someone who gives up easily. Even after being kicked to the curb, she's writing these heartfelt letters to Anne, trying to make her see reason. She's exposing all of Abigail's lies and manipulations, pouring her heart out on paper. Really sad stuff when you think about it. Here's the real kick in the teeth, though. Those letters never even make it to Anne. Abigail intercepts every single one and tears them to shreds with this smug little smile on her face. Talk about playing dirty. But Abigail doesn't stop there because that would be too easy. She takes it to a whole other level by telling Anne that Sarah's been stealing from the royal treasury. It's a total lie, but it's exactly the kind of thing that would set off Anne's paranoia. And sure enough, Anne falls for it hook, line, and sinker. Before you know it, Sarah Churchill, who used to be the most powerful woman in England next to the Queen, is now a fugitive with a royal arrest warrant. She's lost literally everything. Her power, her home, her status, and worst of all, the woman she loved. It's like watching someone get their entire life erased. The crazy irony of it all? After Abigail finally gets everything she wanted, Anne eventually figures out the truth. Maybe it was loneliness. Maybe it was just having time to think clearly. But she finally sees how Abigail manipulated her. She realizes she picked the wrong woman to trust. But it's way too late by then. Sarah's long gone, and Anne's stuck living with this massive regret. She chose wrong, and now she's got to live with that. The look on her face when she realizes what she's done, it's like watching someone understand they've ruined their own life. That's what makes The Favourite so brutal. Nobody really wins in the end. They're all just damaged people who damaged each other even more. Those rabbits in The Favourite, pure Hollywood invention. While Queen Anne really did suffer the tragic loss of all her children, there's zero historical evidence she kept bunnies as emotional substitutes. In early 1700s, England, rabbits were considered livestock or pests, not pets. Nobody was cuddling with them in royal bedchambers. The filmmakers added this detail as a powerful visual metaphor for Anne's profound grief and emotional fragility. It's more cinematically effective than dry exposition about her losses. Sometimes the most memorable parts of historical films are the creative liberties that capture emotional truths rather than literal facts. Thank you for joining us at Sapphic Nook, your cozy corner for all things sapphic. As we wrap up our journey through the chaos and intrigue of The Favourite, remember that sometimes one forbidden kiss can be the spark that changes everything, shaking the very foundations of power and love. Stay daring, keep loving, and we'll see you next time for more stories that celebrate the beauty of breaking the rules.